So let's talk about Coach of the Year. Spoelstra's a candidate, but that's not the guy that I would vote for. The guy that I would vote for, JK actually kind of hinted to it, but let me hear what you guys say first.
I can do it for you. I think it's Nick Nurse. I
That's
mean,
who I would vote for.
he beat
That's who I got.
Vegas had him at 46 wins. They have 46 wins right now. So
Dude, he's unreal, man. You lost the best player in the league,
yeah,
and you're freaking right at the top, same spot you were last year.
yep. I don't think there's a second. The only other person to be considered is Billy Donovan. They gave up everything for picks. All you have is CP3, and you're still the sixth seed, I believe. I'm gonna check, but you're still the fifth seed. You've won 40 games in the West. I mean, that's the only other person. So yeah.
No, without a doubt, it's Nick Nurse, man. Everything that you said, you lose the best player and you're still the second best team in the East.
Yeah.
How are you not going to win Coach of the Year?
Yeah. They still have good players, right? Like Pascal Siakam, you just said, was a candidate for you for one of these awards. He's the former Sixth Man of the Year award winner. Kyle Lowry, I don't think he's that great of an athlete, but he's obviously still considered a top 15 at least point guard. Maybe.
Well,
even
I mean,
better
no.
than that.
Think about it. Who on their team is a top 5 player at their position?
Yeah, none of them. None that I would take top 5.
I think right now the only person I would maybe consider is Siakam.
He's the only
But
one
even then, he's not there.
He's top.
Yeah, I mean,
there's still a lot of players that I'd rather have over him.
Their team's not filled with scrubs, but they still have good players, I guess is my point. But, it doesn't matter, right? When you lose the best player on a team, whether the team still has good players or not, there's an emotional, psychological effect that takes place for that roster when you lose that kind of player, right? We're humans. There's an emotional aspect to it. And the fact that they just continued on and rebounded and didn't go to a slump speaks to coaching. There's nothing else that goes that deserves credit more than that. Nick Nurse gets my vote, and I think he's going to go away with a landslide for that.
Yeah. What about you, Pete? You've been staying quiet for this conversation.
So I'll give it to Frank Vogel. No, it's definitely Nick Nurse. Kawhi left. Danny Green left, which I think was it doesn't sound like a big piece, but last year in the playoffs, he was shooting when he was on the Spurs. So I think that was a huge piece. Pascal Siakam has missed 10 games this season. Serge Ibaka, Pau Gasol haven't played since January 28th. With all that said, they are back to where they were expected to be currently right now. So definitely that. But I did want to give a shout out, and I know you guys are going to laugh, but I think Frank Vogel should just get a mention in the sense of, I get that he's given LeBron James and he's given Anthony Davis, but by no means does that always mean that the team's going to do well or do great or be the first in the West. You've seen coaches like Mike D'Antoni, right? He was given a lot of good pieces, and he was out within, a quarter of the season. If that, he made it 15, 20 games. Byron Scott, all these guys. I think with a organization with the win now mentality of what the Lakers are, I think he gets a mention, but he definitely would not win it over Nick Nurse. But I think it's there's a point there with that, with what he's doing and then being number one in the West for the Lakers itself.
I agree. Yeah, dude. Frank Vogel, this team that the Lakers have right now is basically the same except for Anthony Davis, right? And it's not like the Lakers were the 7th seed or the 6th seed and now they're the 1 seed. They weren't even in the playoffs last year. And they weren't even a fringe 9th or 10th seed trying to get in. They were nowhere close. They shut LeBron down early last year because playoffs were no question in the picture. And so not only did Frank Vogel get them into the playoffs, sure, they have Anthony Davis, but they're the 1 seed. And they're over a Clippers team, which I think is the best team in the NBA, and that has the best player in Kawhi Leonard. So I agree. I don't think it's that absurd. I think Frank Vogel is killing it for the Lakers, and they're lucky that they got a good coach in him because I wasn't sold on Frank Vogel when they picked him up. But that roster is substantially the same, but for Anthony Davis. Danny Green is not that great, and he's kind of past his prime. LeBron's a year older than he was last year when he was on that same team. Anthony Davis is a huge piece, and obviously he's had an impact. But You don't go from like whatever they were, the 13th, 12th seed, all of a sudden to the 1 seed, but for some coaching mixed into having another great piece in Anthony Davis.
I don't even think he's like a top 3 vote. Like,
Shut the hell up.
Yeah,
no,
get out of here.
like, it doesn't take as much coaching to have your top like 7 players.
Dude, Kobe Bryant was on teams that didn't make the playoffs, and if they had a different coach, very well could have. And Kobe Bryant was the best player in the league at those times.
Well, they had Mike D'Antoni. They brought in Steve Nash and Dwight Howard and Kobe Bryant, and they still couldn't get anything done in the first 15 games of the season.
I can understand a coach can ruin a team, right? I can get that, right? But like, it's one of those things like, here are the keys to my Ferrari, don't crash it, right? And Mike D'Antoni is not a good comparison because Mike D'Antoni doesn't know how to coach defense. Like, that's literally his philosophy.
Yeah, but you had offense on your team. Like, he could have ran that team how he wanted to run it.
I think it's more difficult for like a Nick Nurse or a Billy Donovan that has everything working against you, but to still make the playoffs, right? Like, to still work with nothing, playing at the highest level, coaching at the highest level, and winning that many games. I think it's a better job on Billy Donovan than it is on Frank Vogel.
Like, the Rockets screw themselves because they had D'Antoni leading that team and putting James Harden all of a sudden for the first time in his career from shooting guard to point guard. And if you guys remember, Harden was killing it at point guard. Like, he was going off scoring, and then they go out of their way to trade for Chris Paul, and now all of a sudden they got to move Harden back to shooting guard, which the team was completely different. But everybody was so excited because obviously Chris Paul's a brand name, and then they ship off Chris Paul, but who do they bring in? Another point guard in Russell Westbrook, which makes Harden still have to play shooting guard. It's not D'Antoni's fault that the Houston Rockets didn't pan out the way they could have.
I'm not even saying the Houston Rockets. Remember him in New York. Remember him on Phoenix. They couldn't get out of the second round or the conference finals.
Sure.
They have that 20 second like not 20 seconds, like 15 seconds or whatever, get the ball in the air within 15 seconds, as many possessions as possible, which is like not how you win the games in the NBA. You have
But it worked. He's not an unsuccessful coach. Like, they were in playoffs every year competing.
Mike D'Antoni.
I hated those Phoenix Suns teams.
Like Mike D'Antoni is like Bill Parcells. He'll get you to the playoffs, and that's it. You're never going to win a championship with him. It's like that. He'll fix your team, but it's not going to be for good. You're not.
I don't know if he's going to fix your team.
Huh?
I don't know if he's going to fix your. He'll get you. All right, I just have a different mentality on sports then, because I think getting to the playoffs is not good enough. I think personally, it's like, all right, you got to win a championship. Mike D'Antoni's never won a championship. He never will win a championship.
He's never been
He's not a good coach. Like, I just can't label him as a good coach. He's got coach of the year twice in his career, which like, bro, like, you don't deserve those. Like, I'm just not a fan of his style.
No, when he first was like, when they first won like 60-some games with the Suns, it was like a transcendent offense, right? To just catch and shoot, like
No one had seen something that's like that before.
Exactly. But now we're at the point where like you have to play some defense to win in the playoffs. You're not going to not win without playing defense, and like it's not a priority in his offense, like or in his like game plan, and that's the issue. But
they won games, dude. They won games.
But what does it matter if you're the first seed, but you get knocked out before you get?
A lot of teams would be happy to get into the playoffs and get knocked out the first round. Ask the Wizards; they would be happy for that right now.
No, I don't want them to do that anymore. Okay,
dude, all right, hold on. I'm gonna stop this right here. This is the same thing we do every time, where you would rather just lose versus get the last seed of a playoff.
I would. But if you ask the Wizards, they would love to get into the playoffs and get knocked out. It's better than what they're doing.
Wait, back up. My point is that if you had the league MVP twice, right, and you get to the conference finals and you keep losing, is making the playoffs good enough? No, you gotta get to the finals. And he can't.
I agree with you, but that's not what 30 out of 30 GMs think. 30 GMs in the NBA want to just be relevant for the most part.
From an organization standpoint, you absolutely would do anything to even clinch the last spot if you get it by a game for the playoffs and be out in the first round versus tank and then get a first round draft pick.
Who would? Me?
No, I'm saying everyone would want to do
Agreed. Most teams are fighting to be the 8th seed to get swept by the number 1 seed Lakers or the number 1 seed Bucks. They're clawing tooth and nail just to
No,
get to
wait,
that 8th seed, just to get
That's
sweet.
not true. That's not true because the NBA has the worst tanking. That's why they have a lottery system. It's not
But yeah, and worse tanking if you're already at the bottom. Like if you're the last two teams, those two teams are trying to be the worst. But if you're 9-10, you're trying to get to the 8th seed.
because at that point your odds are the same, right? So
Yeah, the way the lottery's set up, it behooves you to at least try at that point.
because then you at least get revenue, stadium revenue, right? To be
They're fighting, man, just for relevance, right? They're trying to keep their fans engaged for another season. It's not the approach I take, but I'm obviously an anomaly here.
my point for all of this was to say that Frank Vogel is like 4th on this list to me because I still think
That's fine. I just think it's impressive that a team that finished 10th in the West is number 1 in the West this season.
But they added a top.
Hold on. I get
Not a top player.
If he's that great of a player, why are we not having a conversation about him for MVP?
Not even in the conversation.
Because he has LeBron, who is in the – wait. That doesn't make sense because this is why your argument doesn't make sense. We are talking about someone that's going to win the MVP. That's why. That's on that team.
Okay, so here we go.
Wasn't last year.
Let's rank the best players in the NBA. Let's see where Anthony Davis eventually falls.
Sure.
And this doesn't have to be in a particular order, but I'm going to name players that I think you guys would agree would be ahead of Anthony Davis, right?
We're assuming health, right? Like KD.
Yeah, today. Kawhi, you would take before Anthony Davis.
Who?
Kawhi.
Yes.
LeBron?
Yes.
James Harden?
Giannis.
I don't like James Harden's game. You can't win.
Giannis.
I would take James Harden. I would take Giannis. That's 4.
I would not take James Harden.
I would not take James Harden either.
So it's 2-2.
Fine.
We need a 5th host.
Huh?
Luka
We need a
Doncic.
5th host.
Is Luka Doncic a better player than Anthony Davis today?
Not yet.
Not today.
Not today.
I'm just
I
throwing
think
out
he, I think he might be. I'll keep him off. So is Anthony Davis the 5th best player, or is there more players out there?
Steph Curry.
I like Steph. I like KD. I like Kyrie, but I wouldn't put Kyrie in front of Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
I like Klay Thompson. I don't think everybody else agrees with me.
I think you hit that point. I think like the next category player would be like Paul George.
No, fuck Paul George. Paul George is a sellout and a bitch.
Yeah, but
So you got him at 8, maybe 9. So
Who? Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
Anthony Davis right now would be 7 unless we think of another person.
That's fine. You can if you threw Luka.
so you have him at 7, and me and Gogi have him at 6.
Yeah. So
No, you haven't. No, these are your votes right here. I haven't put anybody in front of him that
I
you
didn't
did.
put Harden.
I didn't count Harden. Oh no, I did. But I didn't count. I didn't count another guy that you want. You didn't want to count.
Luka.
Yeah, I haven't counted Luka. If you count Luka, then Anthony.
Okay, so we don't ramble too far, right? My point is, right? He's still a top 8 player, right? If you add a top 3 player at the end of his career, I'll give you that. But then you add a top 8 player. Should you not be much better than you were the year before?
I think
you already had the top 3 player,
but not number 1. I wouldn't see just adding him automatically.
Okay, let's not get to this delusion either. Like I like LeBron. Let's not get to this delusion that the Clippers haven't been load managing the whole year. If they played as many games, if Kawhi and Paul George together played as many games as LeBron and AD played together, I think they'd be the number 1 seed.
dude, by a landslide. Like they'd be like 20 games ahead.
But this is going into my point that why Frank Vogel fine is like 4 or 5 in voting, in my opinion. Like I think
No, but like look at their total wins. Like it's not just that the Lakers are 1 seed because everyone else is taking it easy. Like they had like double the amount of wins as last year.
Then why is Memphis the guy in what's his name, the coach of Milwaukee, not the guy then? They're leading the whole league.
Sucks. No, yeah, he should win. Didn't? But he won last year, right?
No, didn't Nick Nurse win last year?
Oh yeah, Nick Nurse probably won. Actually, yeah, then that's probably a good candidate too. But actually, Nick Nurse might do the back-to-back.
But last year the Bucks won 60 as well, right? 2018, 2019, they won 60 games, first in the East.
Yeah, but they didn't win Coach of the Year.
No, I know, I get it, but I'm saying now they're at 53, so like.
So wait, I mean, they're still the best team in the league, right? Like, what does it matter? Like, they're still better than the Lakers technically on paper, right?
They are.
There's probably more coaching going on there because Giannis isn't coaching.
I'm done with this conversation. I believe what I believe. I agree with Arash. Let's move on. I'm done.
Fine.
I believe in Frank.
Whatever.
Frank, I believe.
You want to be wrong.
Anthony Davis and LeBron have both played over 55 games. Paul George has played in 42 games, and Kawhi's played in 51 games.
Dude, Clippers are smart, man. They're not trying to get the best regular season award. They're trying to get to the fucking, excuse my language, championship, man. And they're gonna get it. Like literally, they are gonna be rested and ready.
Don't forget that that bet we got going on with the Clippers and Lakers.
You don't forget, because I'm winning that. Clippers are going. Actually, this break, with the unfortunate circumstance that it's surrounded around, helps the Lakers, man. If it helps the Lakers get some rest, because now that load management that the Clippers had the edge on gets smaller and smaller and minimized by the break that everyone's getting.